After exhaustive research, we found more power in our Project Budget Bird. Find out how much right here, right now. Today on Horsepower TV, we'll cut out our exhaust problems on our Project Budget Bird as we bolt on new headers and a high-flow exhaust system. Then it's back on the dyno jet for another run. We'll use a flow bench to see which cylinder head machining gives you the most for your money. And then it's off to Florida for a wheel-standing, flame-throwing night of fire. So hang on for Horsepower TV. Hi, welcome to the shop. What we got here is a B&M blown small block Chevy that's been bolted between the fenders of this red-hot Monza. You can bet this thing makes plenty of horsepower.
You bet. And it's a simple principle of high performance that, well, the more power you make, the more you need a high-flowing exhaust. Which brings us, of course, to our latest project, this 91 Pontiac Budget Bird.
Man, I got to tell you, I can already feel the fruits of our labor on the road with this thing. Now, in case you missed it, we kicked off this project with a high-tech tune-up that included a new manifold, underdrive pulleys, an ignition upgrade, and a new computer chip. The result, almost 20 extra horsepower at the rear wheel. But I gotta admit, this thing's still laying down in the upper RPM range.
No doubt, there are still quite a few ponies in there all chomping at the bit. We just need to figure out how to turn them loose. Now, let's take a look at some easy bolt-ons that'll open up your exhaust and give some real giddy-up to your machine.
Now, the first thing we're going to bolt on is this tubular exhaust system. It's fully emissions compatible and legal in all 50 states.
It features 1 5/8" primaries and a 2.5" collector. Now, the system also includes this crossover pipe that connects to the catalytic converter. We got this whole setup from Edelbrock.
Now, the cat converter is next, and this is a high-flow replacement we got from Walker Exhaust. Then comes the catback system, but hey, we'll show you more of that later on.
Right now, what do you say we get your bird in the air? With the battery disconnected and the car on the lift, we're going to give all the exhaust system fasteners a shot of penetrating oil, and while it's working, we're going to get to work ourselves on that crossover pipe.
We got the car back down on the ground so we can start getting rid of those old manifolds.
Well, I've got the driver's side. There's a whole lot less stuff over here.
I was afraid of that. But before we do anything, we have to remove the air cleaner assembly, the smog pump system, and some accessory brackets.
Then you disconnect the O2 sensor and the temp sensor at the cylinder head. Take out the manifold bolts, and the manifold lifts out kind of like that. Now, that side ain't quite so easy.
Man, you got that right. I had to dig for an hour just to find the exhaust manifold on this side. In fact, here's what had to come out first. The smog pump diverter valve assembly, the dipstick and tube, air conditioning bracket, and finally the manifold bolts themselves. And that was just to excavate this old artifact. Thank goodness it's history now.
The last operation on the driver's side is to disconnect the steering shaft, just laid off to the side for extra header clearance. Now, if your car is equipped with an airbag, you don't want to rotate your steering wheel while that shaft is disconnected, unless, of course, you want to see what a non-impact inflation looks like. The driver's side header goes in from the top. Now, before you install it, you want to start that rearmost header bolt and lay your gasket in place. Then this slotted flange here goes right over the header bolt. Now, once the header's in place, start the remaining bolts, all except for those front 3.
And here's why. To bolt up the accessories, Edelbrock supplies these longer bolts and spacers, and they'll go on next along with the accessory brackets. Here you go.
Thanks. Now, once I get everything tight underneath here, I'll go ahead and reinstall that steering shaft.
Now, the final step on the driver's side is to reinstall the O2 sensor using this wire extension that comes with the kit. Of course, don't forget the anti-seize compound on these threads here.
You about done?
I am now.
Good deal. Now, one final thing. Don't forget to torque this thing to 30 foot-pounds.
Installing the passenger side header is a lot more difficult. There's less room to work here. In fact, if you have an aftermarket valve cover, you might ought to take it off first. Then the basic procedure is about the same, although after this I got a lot more stuff to put back on.
Well, the crossover pipe's the next thing to go on. Now, the passenger side gets this adapter and gasket sandwiched between the crossover pipe and the header. The driver's side just gets this blue donut. Hey, Joe, give me a hand with this for a second.
Sure.
All right.
There we go.
All righty.
Looks good. Now, we'll just bolt everything up finger tight and leave it loose till we get the rest of the system lined up. Now, you hang loose because we got to take a short break, but we'll be back with more of our exhaust system upgrade after this. Later, we head to a night of fire in Florida, where a six-time champ races in his final Pro Mod matchup.
Welcome back to the shop and to our performance exhaust system upgrade. Now, we've already added a set of headers to Project Low Budget Bird here. Now it's time to continue our installation with a new catalytic converter and a free-flowing exhaust. Now, Joe's been over there busy test fitting all those pieces together. Let's see how they all fit.
Well, this looks like a pretty well thought out kit. The brackets that hold the system in place use stock hangers, which is always good. Slip joints fit nicely, and, well, hardware comes with the kit, so I guess we're ready to put it together after Chuck gets the old one out of the way.
You know, finding some extra horsepower in a high-performance exhaust ain't just some pipe dream. In fact, it really gets its start with its oversized 3-inch intermediate pipe that's a whole lot larger than this stock piece.
Man, just look at the difference. And see this mandrel bend here? It maintains full pipe diameter throughout the radius for maximum flow. Well, I better get busy bolting up this new cat converter.
That's a good idea. Now, the muffler itself is made out of stainless steel, and it's got just enough sound dampening to maintain that free flow. But I got to tell you, it's going to turn that Pontiac over there into a real Thunderbird.
Thanks, Bird Brain. I like Fords, but this beast ain't no blue oval machine.
Well, that was kind of a foul comment, wasn't it? But, hey, give me a hand with this intermediate pipe.
All right. The over-the-axle pipe is next, and oh, here's that bracket we showed you earlier that lets you use the stock hanger assemblies. Now, here's the tip. Leave all your connections loose for the moment. That way you can move things around to give you all the clearance you need. When everything's lined up, you can crank them on down.
Before we can install the muffler, we're going to attach this left-hand tailpipe here and snug it in place with this muffler clamp. That way we can use this welded-on tab to keep everything suspended while we insert the inlet tube here into that over-the-axle pipe.
Well, it looks to me like after we get this tailpipe on, we'll be about ready to rumble.
No, not so fast now. We've still got a few more final adjustments to make before we tighten everything up. I tell you, then it's off the lift and on that dyno jet. In fact, I've even filed a new flight plan for your high-flying bird.
All right.
Come on back. All right.
Man, this bird's really flying now. I thought it was going to ruffle my feathers.
Well, it ought to have ruffled more than your feathers because we picked up over 18 horses on that run. Now, that makes our rear wheel horsepower 183, and even though this computer doesn't measure decibels, man, this thing sure sounds a lot stronger, and well, that's got to be worth something.
Yeah, speaking of worth, we spent about $310 today on the headers, another $275 on the catback system, and well, $60 on the catalytic converter. That's, well, less than $650, about $35 a horse, partner.
All right, cowboy. Well, what do you say we rustle up some business and pay a few bills around here, but we'll be back quicker than you can rope a calf.
And that ain't no bull. Some throw flames, some race on two wheels. We're off to a high-performance circus right after this. Welcome back to the show and to Orlando. We've come here for an annual all-out blowout called the Night of Fire. If you're ready, let's light them up. It's a flame-throwing, wheel-standing circus of power that packs them into tracks around the country. Mix in the usual Saturday night bracket racing, add a monumental Pro Mod shootout, and you've got a high-performance festival of fire, amazing feats, and racing. This one at Speed World stars the likes of Heavy Urban in his 4-second J85 jet car.
It's a trip, I'll tell you what, especially when the parachutes hit at the other end. There's nothing that I know that really compares with driving the jets. I really enjoy it very much.
And if one jet car is not enough, well, there's the Hooters versus Super Mario matchup. But if you want to turn heads and attract attention, well, put an F4 Phantom jet motor in a truck that makes 17,000 horsepower. Bob Motz did that 20 years ago, and he's had a blast ever since.
It's a great show, and it's what Night of Fire is about, having a good time.
Wheel standers share the billing of this horsepower happening, and 35-year veteran Roy Trevino in his pickup came ready to race.
But to run each other, you have to be confident, and you know that your equipment's got to be in A1 shape. These are very costly cars. If you build them yourself, they run anywhere from $80,000 to $100,000. You know.
Wheel-standing trucks are cool, but how about a tank? G.I. Joe, with its alcohol-blown injected Hemi, always wins the battle for applause.
A little hint to any prospective wheel standers out there is forget whatever you learned in racing, because you won't do it in one of these vehicles. You got to be a lot more finesseful, kind of tamer, calmer, and control the insanity, so to speak.
You can't speak about wheel standers without mentioning the name Danny O'Day and his Super Winch, the fastest car on two wheels. We'll have a special feature on Danny in a few weeks. But now, the main event, an historical one at that. You see, it's the Pro Mod career finale of Scotty Cannon, the winningest driver in Pro Mod history in his alcohol-blown Killer Mater.
This is my last race that I'll be debuting before I go top fuel next year, you know, take on John Force and Caps and the Petrogons and those guys. So it's kind of a special event for us, and hope to go out with a boom and maybe whoop him up, but you know, he's tough, he's hard to beat.
He is Charles Carpenter, Scotty's longtime rival, whose Chevy is powered by a 706 cube motor with 3 stages of nitrous.
2 of the stages are actually electronically controlled. The 3rd stage, driver has control on the steering wheel. 3rd stage is not always applicable in all conditions, but it's there if we need it. We'd like to send him away with us a win, but I'm sure he'll have other thoughts on that.
Here we go, Challenger versus the champ, in the first of this 2 out of 3 tumble. And Cannon wins with a 640 at 214 miles an hour. Carpenter has a 673. Then, after some fast thrashing in the pits, it's time for round 2. This time, the jet cars have left the track a little slippery, but Cannon comes through with a 662, enough to end his night and Pro Mod career with a win.
It's one of those runs, it's not the world record, or it's not the record-setting deal, but it's exciting because it's like you're like racing the thing on ice skates, you know, so what can I say? I'm just glad to get there first.
Well, good luck in NHRA, Scotty, and to all the performers of this Night of Fire, thanks for burning up the track. Stay tuned for a heads up on cylinder head machining. You may not believe the results. Hi, welcome back. No doubt you've heard the camshaft is like the brain of an engine, but when it comes to making horsepower, the cylinder head is an equally vital organ. Now, most aftermarket aluminum heads like this one will do you a good job, but for some serious performance people, good isn't good enough. For example, this cutaway head here has been fully ported, and you don't have to know heads or tails about this stuff to know this one will improve your power. But what kind of machining will give you the most bang for your buck? Well, to find out, Chuck's at a place called Arrowhead Performance, where he's finally got a good head on his shoulders.
Thanks, partner, but I'm still ahead of you when it comes to porting for power. Now, what we've got here is a small block Chevy cylinder head with ports in various stages of modifications. This is a stock port that's been gasket matched. This one's been pocket ported only. This one's been gasket matched and pocket ported. The last one's had the full port and polish treatment. We'll see how each one of those modifications improves airflow, but first let's lay down a baseline with a stock cylinder head on the flow bench. We're going to do all our tests at a 1/2-inch valve lift, 28 inches of water on 4-inch bores. Now, the stock head flowed 197 CFM on the intake and 132 on the exhaust. You know, gasket matching has been a real popular modification for many years, but what does it really get you? Let's find out. All that grinding, and we only picked up 3 CFM on the intake. The exhaust stayed the same. The next step up would be pocket porting. Now, it involves cleaning the area called the bowl or the pocket right under the valve head. Now, we're not going to take out a lot of material. We'll just smooth it and blend it. Well, that was pretty good. We picked up 10 CFM on the intake side and 40 on the exhaust. Now let's see what a pocket porting and gasket match job will do. Well, obviously the gasket match didn't do a whole lot for us. We only picked up 4 CFM on the intake side, zilch on the exhaust. So you're going to be a whole lot better off paying attention to the bowl area. Now, if you're a hardcore racer, a full port and polish job is the only way to go. Let's see what kind of numbers we get there. After a whole lot of grinding, we end up with 28 more CFM on the intake side, 11 more on the exhaust. So there you have it. All the various stages of head modifications so that when it comes time to choose the one that's right for your engine, well, you can do it with a good head on your shoulders.
Don't go away. Hot Parts is next on Horsepower TV.
Now, Horsepower's Hot Parts, brought to you by Summit Racing Equipment, your source for high-performance parts for 30 years.
Every once in a while, we come across a new part that really sucks, and well, this one's supposed to. It's a vacuum pump from Master Power Brakes, and you guys with big lumpy cams are really going to love it. Now, it runs off your car's 12-volt electrical system, and it generates enough vacuum to operate your power brake system. It's also small enough so that you can mount it just about anywhere in your engine compartment, and it comes with all the electrical connections and mounting hardware to make it all work. Now, it won't suck your wallet dry either. It's just under $250 and even less if you buy it with one of their brake kits.
Well, it's a bad brake if one of your bolts backs out of your engine at the wrong time. After all, nobody wants to run over their own parts when they're out cruising. Well, now you keep those parts where they belong with these locking fasteners from Stage 8. Now it starts with a specially grooved grade 8 bolt that uses a retainer and a special clip to lock everything in place. By the way, here's how it all looks together. Now they come in kits to fit all popular applications, with prices starting at about 30 bucks.
Now, if you want to keep the rear suspension of your late model Impala SS in place, well, these upper and lower control arms from Metco Motorsports will do just that. They're machined from aircraft quality billet aluminum, and they're fitted with urethane bushings here for precise handling and improved traction. The uppers are fully adjustable so that you can optimize the pinion angle, and the best part is they're going to center up your rear wheels in the opening. Now, you can prepare to open up your wallet for about 500 bucks for this setup.
Well, all right, about time for me to set up next week's Horsepower TV.
You know the only reason you're driving this thing is because I couldn't fit behind the wheel.
Are you comfortable, by the way?
No, man, but I love riding this thing.
Horsepower TV is an RTM production.